Okay, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning. My name's Alyssa Seelman. I'm the Education and Outreach Manager here at Crooked Tree Art Center. I'm going to be your interim our MC, there it is, for Coffee at 10 for a little bit. So thank you so much to Roast and Toast for providing our lovely coffee and our pastries. Please help yourself during, after, whenever. We have so many of them. And also thank you to our visual arts sponsors, Comfort Keepers, Michigan Arts and Culture Council, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Today we're going to be listening to Anne Baughman. Baughman? Okay, close enough. Okay. Anne began working for Freshwater Future in the fall of 2006, where she manages the climate program, helping communities build resilience to the impact of climate change. In addition, Anne works on diversifying fund sources for the organization. And then prior to working at Freshwater Future, she was served as the Watershed Protection Director and National Park Service Ranger. Anne has a bachelor's of science in natural resources from U of M and works out of the Petoskey office. So please join me in welcoming Anne to Coffee at 10. Yay!
I guess I could have updated my bio. We don't have a Petoskey office anymore. So let me put this on for the Zoom crowd. Sorry, I should have got that on earlier. Good. Excellent. Okay. Well, good morning. Thank you for coming out on this cold but beautiful morning. It's great to be with all of you and such a nice big crowd and nice friendly faces in the audience, a few of you that I know. So today we're going to talk a little bit about winter, past, present, and future. Sure. That's the pointer. There we go. So before we go, how many of you were here in the summer when I spoke? Oh, just a couple. Okay, great. So it won't be very many. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to first introduce you to Freshwater Future and who we are. We've been around for 30 years, and our mission is to be a catalyst for community action, really helping to safeguard our waters in the Great Lakes region. And we're really committed to making sure that our waters are clean and healthy from our source waters out in the big waters, our inland lakes, our rivers, to the water that comes out of your tap, whether that comes from a municipal system or whether it comes from groundwater. We started actually in 1996 as a project at Tip of the Mitt Watershed Council. It's impressive that this community has such a rich and strong nonprofit base. And one of our brilliant coworkers at the time, Will Sweikel, came up with this idea to try to help advocates around the Great Lakes region to protect their resources. People would come to us at Tip of the Mitt and ask us to help them protect waters in Grand Haven, Michigan, or they would over in Wisconsin. And we had a limited service area. We couldn't do it. So the idea was, how can we support communities all around the region to do similar work to advocate for protecting their resources? So since then, since 2006, we had to go out on our own because of funding implications. And we've continued that work and continued to grow that and expand that work. The program, what we really do is we provide grants to community groups to do advocacy, to enforce regulations, to hold decision makers accountable, to review permits, whatever it may take to do some of the more activist type of role. And over the years, over the 30 years, we've given over 1,500 grants worth over $6 million. And it's made a big difference. It's really helped to protect the resources from Ontario all the way to Minnesota and Ohio to Wisconsin and Minnesota. We also do a lot of capacity building. So we work with groups to help them become better organizations, stronger nonprofits. It might be helping them become a nonprofit. It might be helping them get a strategy so they can address the issue they're most concerned about. It could be help with fundraising or how to manage a board. So we do a variety of that so that we have these community organizations all around the region that can jump in and help protect resources when needed. And then we do a lot of networking and issue work as well. So for example, we try to bring people together on certain issues. So, one of the emerging issues we have right now are data centers. They're popping up all over the region, popping up all over the country, but also in this region in particular. And so we're trying to help small communities get together, figure out what type of solutions they might need, whether it's a model ordinance so that they don't have these non-disclosure agreements that prevent the municipal government from sharing the agreement for a data center, a variety of different tools. So we bring them together to help them with that. Other issues we work on have to do with drinking water. We're trying to get some legislation passed in Michigan that would make water more affordable. It would help to really make sure that everybody can afford their water and that people who can pay more pay a little bit more. And that is moving slowly, but it has been introduced. So we're excited about that. We don't have an office anymore, so apologize for that, but there are quite a few of us in Northern Michigan still because we started here from Tip of the Mitt. So there's a few of us that are fortunate to still call this home and still work from our homes from here. So let's talk a little bit more about winter. You know, it's really kind of a badge of honor, I think, shared by Northern Michigan residents to say that we're tough enough to live here. Okay, we may not be tough enough to live in the UP, but we're tough enough to live here in Northern Michigan. And, we get tons of snow, we get cold temperatures, the winters are long. And this year, I think we've had a really good chance to really kind of polish up that badge a little bit. I think, now we can reassert that we are true Northern Michigan residents and we've survived it. But what I'd actually like to know from all of you is what your favorite winter activity is. With the winter we just had, what did you like to do this year over the last couple of months that helped you kind of get through it? Great. Yeah, love it. Snowshoeing, yeah. Oh, you are hardy. Okay, okay. Firewood hauling. Yeah, I bet your house is cozy, Doug. Yeah.
Played a little hockey on giant grandkids.
Nice. Oh, I love it. Yeah, exactly. Any other favorite things? Well, I have not been ice skating yet, but I'm looking forward to it. And I know cross country skiing is my favorite. And but I've done a lot of snowshoeing because it's easy, right? I can walk out my door and put on my snowshoes, and I'm fortunate to be able to go right out the back door and do that. So it's been a great way to get out. And it really is an important part of our identity here and our heritage. But if you if you haven't had a chance to look at the art in the room, please do. It's spectacular. I think it really plays to those special aspects of winter that we all celebrate, and those of us who live here and didn't go south, really enjoy. But climate change is impacting winter in northern Michigan. So in our time together today, I'm kind of hoping what we'll do is talk a little bit about some of the past winters, what they're like here, a little bit about what's happening now, and a little bit about what's in the future. I have to give you a disclaimer though right away. I am not a climate scientist, so I am not an expert in the climate field. My expertise is, as Alyssa shared, is really more about water resources. And in the last 20 years, it's more about how do I help communities with community organizing and being better organizations. So today, though, what I'm hoping is we'll share together a little bit about what we've been experiencing and the changes over the time. The information I have is coming from a variety of really trusted sources. One is the Great Lakes Integrated Science Assessment out of the University of Michigan and Michigan State University. I have their website on here. I'm at several of the slides. They have really great information. So if you have any questions and I can't answer them, I'll encourage you to go there to get the proper answers. In addition, using still pretty good National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA's website hasn't been completely gutted yet. In addition, National Weather Service still has good data. And we're fortunate to get some data from the University of Michigan Biological Station right in our backyard. So just giving you that disclaimer. So we'll have fun, though, today exploring winter a little bit. So winter in the past, let me go back. Oh, I'm missing a slide. Oh, I wonder how it got deleted. Oh, that's too bad. Well, winter in the past was a lot of snow. We have had huge amounts of snow, and I think there's a couple of pictures from the Historical Society down there. So take a look at those. I had a picture from them that had, the huge winter sports parks tobogganing run, and they have pictures from the city that just huge amounts of snow they had to shovel, just incredible amounts. In 2013 and 2014 was actually our record year. So not that long ago, we had 184 inches. So it's a lot of snow. But I guess I'm going to get to that maybe. I may have that further down. Probably do. Okay, apologize. So temperature. Average temperature in our region is warming overall. We have had a 2.9 increase in temperature, but the winter temperature is going up even faster. So it's been 3.9 degrees. So we're seeing our winters are even more warm than our summers. And you may have been experiencing that because it might seem like winter starts a little later. It might seem that it ends a little sooner. And it might be that the temperatures overall have seemed kind of warmer, except for this year. So this year actually is an example of the Arctic oscillation. So what's happening is when we have a stable jet stream, when we're in a positive kind of air pressure system, it keeps that cold air up at the North Pole, at the Arctic. But what we're experiencing is an unstable situation. And so we're getting wavier, weaker air currents. It's bringing the cold air further down, and it's making our winter much more cold. Scientists, when it comes to predicting when we're going to have these Arctic oscillations, it's very variable. It can vary by the day, and they don't have yet good models to determine when we're going to be experiencing these. So the one thing that scientists are saying, though, is that it's going to have a lot more variability. So it could be that because there is a lot more open water and it's warmer water in the Arctic, we might see that there's more of these more weaker and wavier air patterns that bring down the cold. But that's just one theory. So we'll have to see. Okay, here's the picture I thought I had there. Snow. Let's go to snow. Look at all this snow, and we know what it's like this year. So this year we have gotten quite a bit of snow. We've gotten 109 inches, so we're a little bit above normal. Typical normal is around 124 inches a year. That's a normal amount. So we'll probably exceed that, I think, this year because it's only February. So we'll get some more snow, and this month, March, maybe a little in April. Maybe not quite as much because the lakes have frozen over, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But just looking at this amount of snow on the city streets, it's a lot. But now the snow is actually changing somewhat. What we're seeing, when we look back at some of the records, overall in the Great Lakes area, there's been a decrease in snow, but not in the areas that experience lake effect snow. So those areas that are in the red, where we are, those are actually getting increases in snow because the lakes are warmer. So because of the lakes are warmer, we're getting an increase in that lake effect snow. And that is predicted to continue into the future. So they are predicting that we'll continue to get quite a bit of snow. Now, we know that it might not always come as soon as we want, right? We talked a little bit about the temperature, so it might be it starts a little bit later and it's in a smaller time period. In addition, the lake effect area is moving further north. So there has been a shift in where the lake effect zones are. And so that will likely continue as well. So we're still we've got some space, but Traverse City is getting kind of on the edge. So we'll have to see what the future holds. So let's talk a little bit about ice cover. So this is a old postcard from the Historical Society of Ice Shanties out on Little Traverse Bay. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know if I've ever seen a bunch of ice shanties out on Little Traverse Bay. You can remember. Yeah, but not that many. Yeah. And this year, who knows? Maybe, now they don't put up their wooden shanties. Everyone takes out their little tents, right, for the day, which is nice. But maybe they'll be able to because we have the ice that we have. Yeah. But ice is actually changing on our Great Lakes and on our inland lakes. So I'm going to share some data from the University of Michigan Biological Station from Adam Schubel. And they've been collecting information on ice cover and the dates when the lake freezes over and when the day of the lake when the ice goes out of the lake. And it's not as many years as they have data for actually water quality in the lake. They've been doing that for a much longer time period. But they do have, quite a bit of data. And it's pretty interesting to see because on the chart, you can kind of see the line that kind of goes on the slope. What it's showing us is that the day that the ice goes in, when the lake freezes over, is very slowly getting later in the season. So instead of in December, it's getting closer to later December, early January or mid-January. So it's just slowly taking longer over the decades for it to freeze over. And similarly, if we look at when the ice leaves the lake, it's leaving the lake earlier in the season as well. So instead of staying on till the end of March, it's probably leaving more like early March. So less ice cover. And that less ice cover then, go to one more, a little heavy data here. They have good data. Means just overall less days when the lake is frozen over entirely. And that has some implications for ecology. It has some implications for our local economy if people are depending on anglers to be going out to be fishing. And it shows us just the subtle changes that's happening to our winter. And we may notice this or we may not. So I did want to share kind of a fun photo for now. So this year, because of that Arctic oscillation, Lake Erie has actually frozen over 95%. This picture was taken on Sunday. There's a couple cracks in it. Yeah, but it's, so we're still going to get these extreme variabilities, right? We're going to see where we have a winter like this winter where we have ice for a longer time period. That's always going to be the case. So let's go a little bit to our next kind of what that means for ice cover in the future. So we're going to likely have less ice cover. We've had less ice cover over the last 20 to 30 years prior to the 1990s. They anticipate that is just going to continue. The northern parts of Lake Michigan, Huron, and Superior have seen the largest decrease in ice cover. So where we are, we're seeing, the bay, we're seeing that freeze over less frequently than it did prior to the 1990s. And we're going to have increased variability from year to year. The scientists just don't really know what's going to happen. So let's talk about our next favorite kind of topic, maybe not favorite topic. I hope this won't bring up too much of a trauma response for folks. But it's really kind of fascinating because freezing rain is definitely something that's now a part of our winters that didn't used to be a part of our winters. It wasn't, the first actual ice storm that the National Weather Service in Gaylord recorded was in 2014. And since then, they've been, of course, keeping track of it, and we're seeing a much more increase, right? So all of these dark counties have had 4. So Sheboygan, Crawford, Oscoda, and in the UP, 3, 2. So, before 2014, there was literally no ice storm data, and now it's increasing on a regular basis. And, I know we all, made it through, and we're still in restoration mode. We're still recovering, and it's going to be a while. There is a really great National Weather Service has done a nice little website about the ice storm. If you haven't seen it, there's a link in here, and I can share the slides if you want to access it. It has kind of a nice rundown on some of the details of the storm. But we're likely going to be seeing a lot more of that. We're going to be seeing, as we have warmer temperatures in the spring and we have precipitation, it's going to mean that precipitation is going to come down as freezing rain. Sorry for that bad news. We're going to go to more good news, though. So that's kind of a snapshot of really what's really kind of changing in winter. And I'll be honest, I think the changes in the winter season are somewhat less dramatic than if you look at the data to see what's happening in our summer season, right? In our spring and fall seasons. We're still pretty fortunate because we get lake effect snow that we still can really experience a good solid winter. And we know it's changing. We know it's going to be, probably some more snow for us off and on. But winters will be shorter. There's going to be less ice cover. There's more freezing rain, increased variability. But we also know that we can't put the brakes on climate change right now. We can't put the brakes on what our weather will be for the next 25 years, right? It's been set into motion. But what we can do is still try to address global warming so that it doesn't get much worse than what it is now. And on the way in today, I was very kind of hopeful, and maybe some of you heard it on the news too, but China announced that they have reduced their carbon emissions due to renewable energy, right? Now, in our country, we're taking we're sliding backwards very rapidly to address carbon emissions. But I am hopeful, and I'm hoping we can spend the next few minutes and the rest of our time kind of coming up with some of that hope of how we can still address global warming and figure out how we deal with our changing climate in the seasons so that we can still enjoy what we enjoy in northern Michigan. And it won't be easy, but there are solutions. And we're seeing the solutions around us with other issues as well. And those solutions also start with us in communities here. So it doesn't have to always be at that national or federal level. It can be at the community level. So let's talk a little bit about what some of those solutions might be to adapt and act and advocate so that we can help to address some of the things that might be happening with climate change and how that might impact our winters and our summers and the health of waters as well. So I want to talk a little bit about adaptation. So one of the key things for adaptation is, recognizing how our winters are changing and then figuring out how are we going to deal with that. So for me, some of the examples of this are recently this week, scientists published a whole set of historic data on ice cover from 1897. They have this whole, they did the research, they established this incredible record that scientists can now use to look at ice cover in the Great Lakes. And one of the researchers who worked on it is going to be using that data to look at how ice cover may have impacted whitefish populations. So looking at, whitefish is in a decline, and so they're going to use that data to see, is ice influencing it, and what do we need to do to potentially remedy that? So this is just a crazy idea, but it could be something like we find out we need ice cover over their spawning areas, that's one of the key things for protecting their habitat. And if that's the case, then we might have to come up with some adaptations to help ensure that we have ice cover over some of those spawning habitats, right? Maybe it's a physical structure that somebody makes to help do that. So adaptation is looking for creative solutions to address some of the problems that we're seeing. Now, we don't have as many problems, I think, from winter changing, but another example is kind of the ski areas. The ski areas used to open almost always on Thanksgiving. And that's rare now, right? But they have become extremely sophisticated at their what they call snow farming, right? So they're now making snow at an earlier date and figuring out how to keep that snow so that they can keep their industry alive in those changing conditions, with winter starting a little bit later. This gives them a little boost so they can maybe not open at Thanksgiving, but they can at least open by Christmas time or by the holidays. So just a couple examples of adaptation. We also have to look for like capacity building. That might be creating, identifying places where when we have the next ice storm, where is the warming facility and the power site going to be for your neighborhood, so that people can go to charge their phones, get water, get whatever they need, food, or a warm place to stay. We didn't need to do that before, but we might need to start planning that. What's the structures that we need to make sure that can happen? And we might also need to adopt some policies. It could be a plan in place for what happens when we get more freezing rain, or maybe it's the next big snowstorm. Do we have those plans in place? And it could be improving infrastructure. So, the ice storm is the best example, but maybe there's locations where we do need to bury the power lines. Maybe not everywhere. There's problems with burying the power lines as well, but maybe there's certain locations where we could do that would strengthen our grid so that we can protect the power. So this is really action. This is more kind of at the individual level of what we can do to take actions individually that will help, reduce the impacts of global warming and help us as we move into this changing climate, whether it's in the summer season or the winter season. And it might be things like next time you buy a snowblower, or it's an electric snowblower. Maybe it's considering putting on some solar panels so that you're not using as much. It might be growing your own food. It's also even maybe more important is, I think right now, is enjoying our resources and getting out there. And in the winter, you all shared all of your great ideas, but also in the summer as well. And I think one of the other important things to do is to advocate for healthy waters, but also advocate for what we need to do to make our communities and our waters and address climate change. So that might be to speak up for climate science. It might be to encourage our federal agencies to do the right thing when it comes to having NOAA and the National Weather Service and FEMA. It's speaking up and sending messages to your elected officials, asking them to fund renewable energy and require it. It's protecting our forests, and it's also taking steps to protect public health. And, example for advocating for winter, one of the things I didn't really mention is, we still use a lot of road salt in the winter, and road salt can have an impact on water quality. And one of the projects we work with is helping, for networks. We've helped to form a network primarily in Ontario that's working to get road commissions or communities to sign a resolution that they will work to reduce their road salt so that they don't harm their water quality, and that they're using better and different practices to still keep the roads safe and free from snow and ice. So right now in Ontario, there's 30 communities who have signed on to this resolution. And it's an example of how we can also do this work locally. Right now, our voice may not have such a huge impact at the federal level. We may not be able to influence some of our decision makers and get them to make changes. But we can at our state and at our county and at our city or village level. We can make a difference there. And I think that's where we have to come together to really think about what are the things we need to do to reduce the impacts to our water resources, as well as climate change. So that was where I really kind of want to end is, I hope that all of you will have gotten at least a little glimpse of how winter is changing, but also a glimpse of how you can help to continue to celebrate winter, how you can help to address some of the issues with climate change at either your individual level, at the community level. And I hope that I'll be working with all of you to do that in the future.